time for Nerdgasm.
Hey, what's up guys? Jerry here, aka Barnacles, and today, boy, this is gonna be a good one. So full disclosure, before I begin this video, I worked at Microsoft for 15 years. I worked in the Windows OS division and shipped every operating system from Windows XP all the way up to Windows 8.1. I feel it's necessary that you guys know about that and the fact that 2 years ago, Microsoft actually laid me off. That way you guys don't think I'm trying to conceal anything, because I am going to have a very harsh opinion of what I'm about to talk about. All right, let's address the elephant in the room. One of my Twitter followers today, Brian Fagioli, a writer for Beta News, actually sent me a link to Tom's Hardware talking about how Microsoft has officially made their stance clear that they will no longer be supporting Windows 7 or Windows 8.1 for any modern processors. That includes anything Kaby Lake or newer on Intel's part, or AMD APU and Ryzen. Those are the most relevant of the CPUs affected. So in a nutshell, what this means for you is if you're already running Windows 7 or 8.1 on a Kaby Lake or newer processor, or you just went and got a fancy new AMD Ryzen processor, you cannot download Windows updates. Every time you try to download a Windows update, you're just going to get an error that basically says, hey, your CPU is no longer supported. Now, the official reason for doing this from Microsoft is that they are in fact doing everybody a justice by ensuring that everybody updates to Windows 10, because Windows 10 works very close to the silicon and squeezes out all of the performance and just makes your experience just oh so awesome. And we all know how bullcrap that is.
You guys want to know the real reason why they're doing it?
All you have to do to get your answer is simply look at the adoption numbers for Windows 10. Currently, the adoption of Windows 10 is sitting right around 25%, but the adoption of Windows 7 is nearly 50% of all desktop PCs. Now, keep in mind that figure isn't just restricted to Windows. That includes Linux and other operating systems as well. You also have to keep in mind that Microsoft went out of their way to force people to upgrade, to trick people into upgrading, claiming that it was a bug, and even with all of those efforts and all those people being forced into upgrading, they still only have 25%. Now, they should have far more than that at this point. And I think the expectation is that Windows 8.1 would have taken over Windows 7 adoption, but it didn't. Windows 8.1 is in the toilet right now for adoption. So the real reason that Microsoft is doing this is simple. It's because of telemetry. Windows 10 is completely decked out with telemetry to report all kinds of information from your computer that they can use in all of their marketing research, sell to third parties, and do n number of other things with it. But the truth is, Microsoft is just trying to find a way to force everybody that's still on Windows 7 to upgrade to Windows 10, because it's very difficult, if not impossible, for Microsoft to instrument the down-level operating system, which is Windows 7, to send all of the telemetry and data that it does right now. And it also doesn't integrate with their App Store, which is one of their biggest plays as far as integrating Xbox, the Windows Phone experience, and the desktop across, like the trifecta. So what they're really trying to do here, guys, is they're trying to force you to upgrade to Windows 10 under a cover of, oh, we can only support the best features of the newest processors on Windows 10. We can't do it on Windows 7 and Windows 8, which is bullshit, and I'm going to tell you why. Now, the Windows 10 architecture is heavily based on the Windows 8 architecture, which is in turn based on the Windows 7 architecture. Now, there is a big gap between Windows 7 and Windows 8, but there's not as big of a gap as you'd think between Windows 8.1 and what you see as Windows 10, at least at the low level where you're interacting and using the CPU. Now, that doesn't mean that Windows 10 doesn't have features in it that will make it faster or more efficient on modern CPUs, but there is absolutely nothing there to prevent it from supporting the older CPUs, because it's all still based on the x86 architecture and everything is just gonna work. The only reason that they're not pushing down the updates is because they're hoping that people like you that are running Windows 7 or Windows 8.1 will not be able to get Windows updates anymore, which means no more virus updates, no more driver updates, no more security patches, and eventually you're just gonna be infested with viruses and malware and overtaken, and then, oh my God, you're just gonna have to upgrade to Windows 10 to save your butt. Now, some of you might be thinking that this is just speculation and I'm just butthurt about them laying me off 2 years ago. But the truth is, I still use Microsoft products. I absolutely love Microsoft products. I'm actually running Windows 10 on the box behind me, and even did a video on how to cripple all of the telemetry so that Microsoft isn't collecting your keystrokes and isn't collecting all of your information, because I just don't want them to have it. It is possible to make Windows 10 a nice, sterile environment to work in, and it's actually a good operating system. Compared to Windows 8.1, it is massively faster on modern hardware. But as you can see from the metrics, most people are still sticking with Windows 7. Oh my God, almost 50%. It's crazy of all desktop PCs are still running it, and that has Microsoft scared, because Microsoft put a lot of work into Windows 10 to be able to harvest information and to be able to gather stuff and get you to buy apps from their store and do all these things. And unfortunately, that 50% of the market that's still on Windows 7, they're missing that. That's what they're pissed about. This has absolutely nothing to do with the ability to support those down-level processors. Case in point, if you have a Kaby Lake CPU or you have an AMD APU, you're probably already running Windows 7 right now, right? And it probably runs just fine. You probably have no problems with it. You know why? Because it's supported. Microsoft is just saying now that the new updates they're doing to Windows 10 to better utilize the modern processors are not going to be on Windows 7. But that is absolutely no reason not to supply all of the other Windows updates, which is what they're saying. They're going to cease all Windows updates on the down-level CPUs, which is total and utter
bullshit.
By the way, this also includes the Qualcomm 8996. So I don't know who's using those, though. Qualcomm, seriously? Maybe like a tablet or something? Nah, I don't know. Now, if I want to play devil's advocate here, I can support Microsoft dropping all support for Windows 7 because technically Windows 7 was end of life in 2015. Now, I do have it on good authority that they extended that end of life estimate due to all of the continued problems with Windows 8.1 and Windows 10. But officially, Microsoft does not have to support Windows 7 any longer, which means they can simply just tell everybody to F off and pull the updates, and they're not legally liable in any way. But for Windows 8.1, that is not true. Windows 8.1 is supported through 2018, which last time I checked my chronometer, I think that's the official name for it, calendar, I don't know, whatever. But anyways, it said 2018 for 8.1. So they are officially telling users that bought that operating system on their modern hardware that they are no longer going to support them when technically the operating system is supposed to be supported on all of the previous generations that were supported through 2018. So that may be a little bit of a legal liability and maybe a loophole that we'll see come out here in the future as people are fighting this decision from Redmond. Now, the two ways that this manifests itself is on Windows Update, it'll either say that it couldn't find any updates, basically reporting, I couldn't find any updates up on the server, or you'll get an update saying specifically that your CPU is no longer supported, and then you're most likely going to get some propaganda to update to Windows 10. Now, I worked at Microsoft for 15 years as a developer, and I can tell you right now that the way that the kernel and HAL works in the CPU driver, I mean, it's not really a driver per se as you would see it. It's a very simplistic mechanism that basically interfaces with the HAL, and the HAL knows what architecture the CPU is. Well, all the CPUs are still x86 frickin' architecture or x64 if you're 64-bit, which is an extension to x86. I'm not going to get into all the technical jargon here, but based on that, everything is still perfectly supported. Now, let's say that they modify the HAL or the kernel in Windows 10 to actually support some of the new extensions and stuff that have come along with the newer architectures, Kaby Lake or newer on Intel or Ryzen on the AMD side. That's fine. They can put those into Windows 10, and then technically you should update to Windows 10 because you're going to get the most performance out of your CPU. But what doesn't make sense is to drop support to port those updates over to Windows 7 and Windows 8.1 because all of those updates are literally the same code change in most of these scenarios. Also, why are they stopping all updates? Updates to Windows Defenders, updates to other drivers on the box like the motherboard and stuff like that. Why are those being dropped? Why are all Windows updates being dropped? It should simply only be CPU driver updates. And honestly, you see those maybe once in a blue moon, which means nobody would even notice on the average system, especially if you're on old hardware, because you would never actually get an updated CPU driver. So guys, you can say that I got a tinfoil hat on, you can say that it's a conspiracy theory here, but I think it is absolute bullshit that Microsoft is doing this, and that Satya, the CEO of Microsoft, is spinning this as, oh, we just want people on Windows 10 so that they can get the most out of their CPUs, and we can't guarantee that same level of compatibility and reliability on the down-level CPUs, even though every piece of code in the Windows 10 operating system was built, compiled, and installed from those previous generation CPUs.
So think about that for a second.
This makes absolutely no sense, guys. I hope none of you guys are buying this bullshit from Microsoft. Keep fighting the power. If you want to stay on Windows 7, stay on Windows 7 and let Microsoft know that this is bullshit and they need to stop lying to the public and just admit that they want everybody on Windows 10 because they're not getting the market share they want, the Windows Store is not getting the attention that they want, and they're not getting as much telemetry from the end user that they want, because Windows 7 was actually a decent operating system that didn't do all that bullshit that everybody's complaining about and doesn't like about Windows 10. Also, Microsoft still has not publicly reported what telemetry they're sending up to the cloud from your machine, even though countless people have set up network monitor and seen huge payloads going up from your computer, including just pushing a single key in the search bar as even generating information going up to the cloud. Microsoft won't report on any of that. And honestly, it's one of two things. Either they don't want to report on it because they know the data that they're collecting is sensitive and that people would be scared that they're collecting it. Or number two, which is the more plausible thing, Microsoft probably has no idea how much information is being sent up to the cloud because they basically instrumented the entire Windows 10 operating system to support this mechanism for sending stuff up to the cloud, and all of the developers internally at the company were just like, hey, let's send everything. So honestly, I'm going to say number two is probably the more plausible scenario, which also kind of supports scenario one, because I'm guessing that of all the information that everybody's uploading to the cloud, a good portion of that is probably sensitive information that you don't really want in the cloud. And if you guys have watched some of my other videos, you'll also know that the telemetry, Microsoft says, oh, we don't associate the telemetry with your user credentials or anything, so it's all anonymous. Well, here's the problem with that, guys. Everything is submitted up to the cloud using a machine ID that's linked to your product license, which means all of it can be tracked back to whoever owns the license, or at the very least, the computer that is using that license. And all of the information that gets sent up the cloud, regardless of what program, can all be linked back through that one piece of data. And if you know anything about databases, you know that that is every bit as easy for them to figure out where that data came from as if they just joined all that data together in a SQL database on one primary key. Sorry, I got a little geeky there. A lot of you guys probably don't know how SQL works. Basically, if your name was written on every single piece of data that went up the cloud. There you go. That's what I'm saying. So guys, these are my opinions of what Microsoft's doing right now. It is a clear power play to try to force people up to Windows 10 because all of their other mechanisms failed to get the adoption that they wanted. Think about it, guys. Most of the adoption of Windows 10 was forced. You've seen all of the articles from the news outlets. You've seen countless people reporting that they woke up in the morning and their machine was magically on Windows 10. One lady even sued Microsoft and they settled out of court because they upgraded her computer to Windows 10 and her freaking point of sale software for her business didn't work the next day. And I'm sure there's been many other cases like that have been settled out of court because Microsoft wants to keep this low key. The bottom line is Microsoft wants you on Windows 10 because that gets them your telemetry and that gets them your business buying games from the store and using the Microsoft Store for apps. That's what they want. This has absolutely nothing to do with them actually supporting the down level CPUs. They're just seeing the new technology from Intel and Ryzen as an excuse for them to say, you know what? We're just gonna say that we can't support anything on those CPUs ever again. Not even virus definition updates, not even the simple little INF text file updates that get pushed down through Windows Update. And I think that's bullshit. You guys should think that's bullshit. And I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Please leave a comment down below if you agree or disagree with anything that I said, or if you have other concerns. Also come over to Twitter and follow me. I am at Barnacles, and I am always up for talking the topic of Windows 10. You guys, if you haven't seen all my other videos, I'll have them linked down in the video description, including how to rid yourself of the Microsoft Windows 10 spyware that's basically uploading all of your crap to the cloud, and some other videos that I've done on Windows 10 to kind of tell you about what's going on. And some of those videos reiterate what I've said here, and that is Microsoft wants you on Windows 10. That is the end game, and they will say and do anything to get you there, but stand your ground. If you guys like Windows 7, stay on Windows 7. Windows 7 is stable. Of my entire career at Microsoft, it was the thing I was most proud of shipping by far. And that's including Windows 10, guys. All right, well, I hope you guys enjoyed this video, and until next time, which will probably be soon because Microsoft just keeps on screwing up. These guys, they can't get out of their own way.